Hello everybody and welcome to another video. So in today's video we're going to be taking a look at a new rule set that's been sent to me, and it's called Orrible Little Men. Now this is a large skirmish wargaming rule set which is isn't set for any particular period, though it seems to work best through sort of the ancients, medieval and fantasy worlds. This is written by Adam Fairclough, who got in touch with me and basically asked if I'd just like to take a look at it. Now, at the beginning of this, I must apologise to Adam because I actually received this quite a few weeks ago. I did film an initial video and I was all ready to put it out. Those files got corrupted for one, and I couldn't retrieve them. So I've just had to do the whole thing again. But that has let me sort of, have another look at the rules, play through things again. And I just thought I'd share my thoughts with you. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through the rulebook so you can see what you get here. And I'm also going to run through a couple of examples of play, just to give you an idea of what the game is about. So first of all, this is a really nice A4 sized book with nice artwork on it, and it says here that Orrible Little Men is a multi-period large skirmish war game that requires as few as 20 models to get started. I think that's going to be quite interesting to a lot of people. It is a bit of a crowded market at the moment for the skirmish games, but I know a lot of people quite like the idea of a general rule set which you could apply to a lot of periods, especially if they're just looking for something they can just pick up down the club. So let's start having a look through, shall we? So let's kick things off. There is a decent contents page here, and you can see here that the core rules actually only take up the first 16 pages of this 65-page rulebook. In this game, you are going to be splitting your models into units. Some skirmish games require you to use individual figures and activate them individually. That isn't the case here. Here, you are going to be splitting your people into units. Infantry units are made up of 5 to 10 models, cavalry 3 to 6, artillery are single bases with 4 wounds, chariots are single bases with 3 wounds, and characters are single model units, though there is actually, they can have little attendants in this that go around with them, but they are essentially a single character has 3 wounds, and a unit must stay within 1 each of each other to be in cohesion. This model just tends to use D6, uses D3 a few times, and this is a I go, you go system, and the turn system is broken down as follows. You have an initiative phase where both players are going to roll a D6, and whoever rolls the highest chooses who is going to have initiative for that round. Whichever player ends up taking initiative will then go first in each of the subsequent phases for the remainder of the turn. So they'll also pick which units they want to shoot first. And when it comes to the combat phase, they'll choose which combats are resolved in which order. Now, one of the first things that I sort of quite liked, and I'm always a fan of, is there are random events in this, and these occur when both players roll the same result on their initiative roll. Some people aren't a big fan of random events. I like them because I think they add a little bit of tension to the game. So here is the random event table. So you can see here, if you've rolled up the random event, you roll a d6. On a 1, you'll get divine intervention. On a 3, you'll get shoot. Both players roll a d6. The player that rolled high selects a single friendly unit that is armed with a ranged weapon or an artillery unit. They immediately take a shooting action. Number 6, there are some setting-specific random events. Now, this will come in later on. These could be specific to the time period that you're playing in or to the scenario that you're playing in. Once you've resolved your random event, you roll initiative again until somebody wins. If you roll a tie, you don't roll another random event. You just keep going until someone wins one way or the other. Now, in the movement phase, starting with the player who has initiative, both sides will move as many of the units as they wish, and once they are done, they will then pass to the other player. It's fairly straightforward stuff and will be very, very familiar to people if you've played any type of skirmish game. Infantry units have a maximum movement of 6 inches. Those skirmishers can go 8. Cavalry units go 10. Chariots go 10. And our artillery have a maximum movement distance equal to the remaining wounds that they have, which I think is quite interesting because that could represent the crew sort of trying to push it along. So if you have a cannon with 4 wounds and you've got 4 crew, you could take one of those crew members off. So when you're down to 1, all you can do is gently push the cannon forward a little bit. Units can move in any direction they like, and if they want to run, they declare it. They've got to go in a straight line, and they add d6 inches to it. There's a very helpful table here that just puts on here some basic unit modifiers. So pike armed units are actually suffer a -1 inch and can never run. If you're crossing an obstacle, it's -2. Very, very straightforward stuff, nice and simple. Now, the next phase of the game is the charge phase. Now, you can't go within 2 inches of an enemy model unless you are charging them. So starting with a player who has initiative, both sides will charge with as many of their units as they wish. So once a player selects that unit, it can't be a unit that's run. They will select a charge, and then you just go for it. Now, you can pre-measure in this game. So, for example, if you move an infantry unit 6 inches, you could then declare that they are going to charge, I don't know, the unit of bowmen that's near them. Let's say they're 4 inches away. You'll then roll a d6, and as long as you get a 4, they're going to make it. So infantry add a d6 to their charge, cavalry add 2d6, chariots add 2d6, and artillery can't charge. So, again, fairly standard stuff. There's some basic rules on here for charge distance modifiers. So pike armed units go a little bit slower. You can cross an obstacle and charge. That's something that I quite like to see. And are you going through a wooded area? Now, there's also, as you would expect, some charge reactions. So as long as that unit hasn't charged or it hasn't run, then they can do a charge reaction. So pike armed units can brace, units armed with bows can shoot, cavalry units that are not armed with ranged weapons can sort of attempt to counter charge. And then you've got the normal evades. Now, something which you do see in a couple of games, but I haven't seen for a while, is the charging unit will do a certain number of impact strikes. So these are going to be in addition to their attack and are worked out during the charge. So impact strikes are extra combat rolls. So for example here, infantry units, you get one impact strike for every 4 models in the unit. So if you've got a model 8 people in the unit and they charge a unit, you're going to get 2 impact strikes. Cavalry units do 1 for every 2, chariots do 1 for every enemy model that the chariot is in base-to-base contact with, and you work these out straight away. So these combat rolls are made immediately. I will come on to how combat is resolved a little bit later on, but you are getting a little, sort of a bit of a freebie attack as you're going in. That's something I quite like, because if you've got like a monster and it goes barreling into someone, or a chariot, then it's nice to know it's doing some damage that way. That kind of reminds me of old Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Next up in the order of things, we have the shooting phase, and this again just follows a very straightforward sequence. The player who has initiative will select who is going to shoot, and as long as they're eligible to shoot and they haven't run, they can attempt to do so. So as long as they are within 24 inches of at least one of the models in the enemy unit, they can shoot. And over here you have a table which shows the weapon ranges. So with the exception of javelins and pistols, everything has a range of up to 24 inches. And on here, this denotes the score that is required to hit. So if you've got 6 models firing with crossbows, let's say 14 inches, they're going to need 6s to hit. However, javelins 6 inches away will only need a 5+. Now, crucially, if you have a unit, then you've got, say, 5 models of the unit are in range and 3 of them aren't, only those 5 models are going to get their attacks. Likewise, if you're shooting at an enemy unit and only half of that unit is in range, only models that are in range can be removed as casualties. So if you end up doing 5 wounds to a unit and only 3 people were in range, only those 3 people can be selected and the other 2 shots are wasted. There's a couple of little modifiers like here where shooting units on with bows and crossbows get +1 if they're shooting at something within 12 inches, but it's very sensible. The characters in shooting, when a character is the target of a shooting attack and suffers any number of wounds, you have to roll a d6. If the result is the same as or higher than the number of hits they've suffered, all of the hits are instead suffered by a friendly unit within 3 inches of them. That basically represents people rushing in to save their lord. If the roll is failed and there's no friendly units within 3 inches, then they are transferred to the character, or if he has attendants, they can take them instead. So there's quite a lot of things you can put in the way of your characters here to absorb some hits. Importantly, in this game, you can make shooting attacks from higher ground, such as hills, and shoot over the top of at least 1 unit. So that's something I like to see, because I like that. It doesn't really give you any modifier, but you have to be able to draw a line of sight. You cannot shoot through friendlies. So what we're going to do now, just going to leave the table for a second and let's go and let's just look at an example of some shooting. Okay, so I've set up a small example board here. We have a small setup with a house, a windmill, and some people that want to fight over it. So let's just have a look at a simple shooting example. Down here we have a unit of 6 peasant archers who have just seen this roving band of dangerous other peasants from somewhere else coming into view, and they are trying to sneak around this bush. Now, as the archers have not taken any run actions or done anything else this turn, they are free to shoot. So the first thing we have to do is check that they are in range. So the bow has a maximum range of 24 inches, and if we measure here, we can see that they are, well, they're over 12 inches, they're within the 24, and all of the eligible models that can shoot are slightly over 12 inches. Now, I say eligible. Now, the front 5 models are eligible to shoot. The one at the back here that's giving the 2 fingers is not, because you can't shoot through friendly models. In the target unit, there are 4 eligible models that can be shot at, because these 2 are either blocked by other models or they are in the cover of the bush. So I've got 5 ranged shots shooting at 4 models. As you can see here, the bow requires a 6 to hit if it's firing at 13 to 24 inches. There are no other modifiers, so that's it. We've got 5 dice looking for 6s. I trust my dice rolling will do its normal thing here, but I'm looking for 6s. There we go. 2 6s, so we have 2 hits that the other unit needs to defend against. So let's see. The peasants, I think, will count as light infantry, and the second column is their armor save. So light infantry have a save of 5+. All right, so 2 saves of 5. So 1 save and 1 model has been killed. The casualty that has to be removed must come from the eligible model. So these 2 weren't eligible, but we'll take this chap over here. And that's it. That is shooting in a nutshell. It is nice and simple. There are some nuances to it which you can add in. So bows can move and shoot, but they require 6s to hit. If you kill more than half of the models that are in the unit has to take a morale test. But it is a simple and straightforward system. Right, now we're done with the shooting, let's come on to the most important phase of the game and what most people want to know about, the combat phase. So again, the player with initiative will decide which combats are worked out and in which order, and to make a unit's combat roll, the player will roll a d6 for each of the models within that unit that is in base-to-base contact with an opposing character's model. So there's none of this, are you within 1 inch or anything like that, it's everybody who is in base-to-base. Importantly, a roll of 6 is always a success and a roll of 1 is always a failure. Each success causes 1 hit to the enemy unit, and then both sides make a number of armor saves that is equal to the amount of hits that they suffered in combat. So of course, as you can see, combat here is simultaneous. Models with multiple wounds will make a single attack for each model they are in base-to-base contact with, up to the amount of wounds they have remaining. So if you have a monster with 3 wounds remaining, he can attack up to 3 guys that he is in base-to-base contact with. Now, importantly, characters make a single combat roll in addition to the amount of combat rolls they would normally roll while following all of these rules. So if you have a character with 3 wounds remaining, he could fight up to 4 models in the base-to-base contact. There are a few situational modifiers here, as you can see. So units armed with ranged weapons will get a -1 penalty to their attack rolls. Pike-armed models that are in combat with enemy infantry unit that have not charged or braced that turn will suffer a -1. These are all very, very straightforward rules, and to be honest, I think it's going to be quite easy to pick this up. Anyway, the best way to show how combat works is with another example. So what we're going to do, much as we did with the shooting, let's go over, set up a simple combat between 2 units of infantry. Okay, so we're back and the battle has moved on. The archers have moved away, chasing off those peasants that they were shooting at. And these men-at-arms have moved up to help, and these knights have come along to have a fight as well. So they are both heavy infantry. The knights just spent their turn moving around that bush, so it's over to the sergeants, and they are going to try and goad the knights into charging them. Now they have a movement of 6 inches, so quite simply, they are going to just move to about here, just in case the knights fail their charge, and then they can counter charge. But this player is feeling confident so it clearly isn't me. Now we're into the charge phase, and the owning player of the knights elects to try and charge. And if we measure, we can see that this knight is only 4 inches away, so he only requires a 4 or more on a d6. Cavalry would get 2d6 if they were charging. A 1 is always a failure. There we go, a 6. So their charge is made, and I believe if we just check, all of them are in range. So each of these knights picks a target and goes crashing into them. So I will just get these moved, and then we have to work out the impact strikes from the charge. So for impact strikes from infantry units, you get 1 for every 4 models in the unit. This is quite simple to work out. I have 4 models. They have a melee value of 4, so I get 1 chance of rolling a 4 just to try and do a little bit of damage before the combat. Okay, so that's a hit. Now, heavy infantry have a save of 4, so let's see if the men-at-arms can defend it. No, they didn't. So one of their number has fallen. Let's take this one here, seeing as he is on the end. Okay, so that is the end of the charge phase for the knights player. So now it moves over to this player, and he can't really do a lot, but what he can do with a unit that's already locked in combat, he can move models up to 2 inches, so they are in base-to-base contact with a model. So he's going to bring this one forward to fill the gap, but this chap at the back here isn't going to be able to make it. But what he is going to do is just shuffle it forward a little bit there. All right then, let's fast forward to the combat phase. Okay, so it's time for combat, and as you can see, I've already worked out the dice. The knights are going to get 4 dice, and the men-at-arms are going to get 4 dice, and that's because this one chap here hasn't made it into combat. Both of these units are heavy infantry, so they require 4s to hit. There is no bonus for charging. That's covered under special rules for some units, but you get the impact strikes. Now, importantly, we must remember that 1 casualty that has been caused in the impact strike, because that counts towards the winning total for the knights. So let's roll for the knights. They are looking for 4s. And they got 4 hits. Okay, let's roll for the men-at-arms. Oh, cock dice. They got 2 hits. So the men-at-arms need 4 saves of 4. They've saved 2 and taken 2 casualties. The knights also need saves of 4. And they have saved both. So we take off 2 casualties from this unit here. Now remember, they've already taken 1, so they've actually suffered 3 casualties. Okay, so it's time to work out the results of the combat. Well, clearly the men-at-arms lost, and because they lost, they are pushed back 2 inches by the knights. Now, the knights have a choice. They could follow up to 3 inches to remain locked in combat. They can stay where they are, or they can move up to half their movement in any direction to consolidate. And these knights aren't super keen for bloodlust, so they are just going to move back and see what the men-at-arms are going to do. Importantly, because the men-at-arms have lost to combat, they need to take a morale test. Within the combat section, there are some optional rules for dueling, but you have to agree to use these before your battle. Now, whenever units suffer hits from shooting or attacking, they will get an armor save, and there's some basic armor save modifiers here, and the armor that they have is given on their character profiles, which are later in the book. When a model that begins a battle with multiple wounds, such as characters or big monsters, fail an armor save, they take a wound, and you can just mark that with a token or whatever. And importantly, that will reduce the number of attacks that they have later on in the game. So there is a morale system in the game, and it is situational, and that's basically if a unit has lost to combat, for example, or if an army leader is slain, or if a captain is killed within 6 inches of a unit. In order to take a morale test, the unit's controlling player will roll a d6 and compare that to the unit's morale value, applying the modifiers that you can see in this table up here, which are also situational. If the result is 0 or less after the modifiers are applied, then the unit will instantly rout from the field with all of its remaining models being removed. If the result is below the required result but above 0, then you will remove the difference between the result and the morale value in additional models. So these are guys who are scurrying off the table, or just fleeing for their lives. So there is a slight errata already to this paragraph here, which the author sent me, and fair enough, it is his first rule set, so I think he can be forgiven for that. Now, instead of what is written just here, if any unit that is not a character loses a combat and their morale test rolled is a natural 1, you roll a d6. If the d6 roll is lower than the amount of casualties that they suffered, then they automatically rout. The text here just says if they roll a 1 that they go, that's it, they're off. But no, there is a little bit more to it than that. So following along with our example here, now with the morale test, these guys need to take it. Now remember that they did lose the combat. They have a morale of 4 as heavy infantry, so I'm looking for a 4 or more on a d6. There are no modifiers, there's been no characters killed nearby, and they're not in rough ground or anything like that. It's just a basic 4 or more. So 3, that is a failure, and that I failed by 1, which means an additional model is lost and killed in the rout. So this unit of men-at-arms has been very, very pummeled. I don't know what they're going to do next turn, but that's the basics. Next up, we have a section on the army morale, which represents the whole army's willingness to fight and follow orders. So you start the game by calculating how many points you have on your force. You divide that by 10 and round it up to the nearest whole number. Then you roll a d6, and on a 4 or more, you gain another 1. The army morale is affected by situations that happen throughout the battle, which you can see here. So, for example, a friendly army leader routs or is removed, you take 3 off of it. If some of your artillery explodes, is at -1. But if a friendly character kills an enemy character, it goes up by 1. And if at any point it's reduced to 0, that's it, it's game over. Your army has immediately routed from the field and that player has lost. There are other things which are situational, which can affect the army morale. So that's a nice little system to have in here. I like that. I like having that overall morale, because it kind of puts a limit on things, and it also means that you don't need to destroy every unit in the enemy army in order to make them run. You could just pick off a couple of characters and the army will lose the will to fight. Right, now we move on to the rest of the book. So here are basic unit profiles. So you see we have a combat value, so what they need to roll over to hit, their armor save, their morale, and their points cost. And you very basically have characters, which are army leaders, captains, and attendants, heavy cavalry, light cavalry, heavy infantry, light infantry, skirmish infantry, fanatical infantry, artillery, and chariots. Those are the basic building blocks of your force. There's a little bit of an explanation here for core unit types and what their roles will fulfill, and then we come into the thematic settings, and these are now basically the sort of archetypes and modifiers that you can place over the template to gear it to your specific period. So here we have one for Hannibal, so we have additional rules for elephants and some stats for them. Also a new weapon trait for the Roman Peeler. This one is for the Crusades, so you have things in there for religious leaders. And we have one here called Torn Liveries, which is for the Wars of the Roses, which is very interesting. This includes rules for the Rebuilder, so the volley gun, and also some different random events. So you can see here that this one has the treachery, because again, everyone in the Wars of the Roses has to change sides. So you're gonna find that in there. This is one of the ones I'm pretty interested in. This is the fantasy archetype called Veiled Sorcery. So this adds in the rules for wizards, casting spells, and gives you lots of example spells here like Magic Shield, Spectral Caltrops. That's ace. I've never seen that before. Churned Earth. So things that you can add to your game to make the system fantasy based. On top of that, we have rules for monsters, behemoths, using both of those as mounts, and horde infantry as well. Now, I thought it would be really fun here. Let's do another combat example, and let's see what happens when we have a unit of just human infantry taking on a behemoth. And I'm going to bring one of my old models out of retirement here. Okay, we're going to have a little bit of fun here. So those poor beleaguered men-at-arms eventually got completely wiped out, and they've awoken in some parallel version of their own world where, unfortunately, a huge behemoth ogre type creature has seen them. He's come down from his windmill and he's going to take them out. So let's just see how behemoths work. So this is just the more fantasy side of things. So these kind of models would start with 6 wounds each. Let's say he's taken an arrow already in the battle and he's down to 5 wounds, but he's seen these knights appear in his home and he wants to charge them. So let's roll. Now he acts similar to heavy cavalry when it comes to charge ranges, so he's going to get 2d6 and he's going to be charging 7 inches, which is more than enough to get him into base to base. Now importantly, when a behemoth, in this case a large behemoth, gets into combat, they do impact hits to every model that they are in base to base contact with. So that's going to be the front 3 models there. Okay, so that behemoth is getting 3 impact hits, and he got 2. So the knights, or rather men-at-arms, who are continually getting punished, need 2 saves of 4. Oh, they saved both, which is fantastic. So it's now into their charge phase. Now, what they can do is move up to 2 inches to bring themselves into base-to-base contact. This chap isn't going to make it. So they have 5 people in contact. Remember, he has 5 wounds left, and he gets 5 attacks. You get 1 attack per remaining wound for every model that you're in base-to-base contact with. So if he'd had 4 wounds remaining, he would only get 4 attacks, even though there's 5 guys there. Okay, so let's roll for the men-at-arms first. They have 5 attacks, hitting on 4s. Oh, they only got 1. This poor unit just cannot catch a break. Now, who gets 5 attacks for the 5 models he's in base-to-base with. He got 4 hits. He was also looking for 4s. So, first of all, those poor men-at-arms need 4 saves of 4. 2 of them saved, and 2 of them have been just stomped underfoot. Just needs a single save of 4, which is... Oh no, his save is 5 for behemoths. So a single save of 5, which he didn't do, so his wounds go down by 1. So he's now down to 4. Right, so now this unit would lose the combat. Again, they would go back by a couple of inches. He's obviously going to follow them up, but before he does, they need to take a morale test. The morale of this unit is 4, so we roll for them. They pass their morale test and they're going to keep fighting. And so there you go. You see, the system is quite flexible. I say it is quite simple, but then that's not always a bad thing. Well, I hope you enjoyed that example. That kind of didn't go how I thought it was going to, but anyway, another archetype is the rise and fall of the Cavaliers, and then we get into scenarios, and there is quite a few. We have pitch battle, following orders, led by donkeys, a surprise encounter, an ambush, sanctuary. There is a lot in here. And to be honest, I think for a fairly straightforward, simple rule set, it's nice to see a lot of scenarios. And I can see these scenarios being used as inspiration in a number of war games as well. There are a total of 20 scenarios in here, and you even get a small campaign system as well, which shows you how to use a campaign map and some basics for moving around the board. And one of the big things which I know people are looking for in games is the author has also added a section on solo gaming as well, for those people who just want to play a game quickly, simply, and then pack it away at home, because not everybody's able to get an opponent or get down a club. To round off the book, there are some examples of play, a complete list of unit profiles, and of course quick reference sheets. So what do I think of the system? Overall, I think it is a solid but simple system, and I think this is going to appeal to people, especially at clubs, who don't have a lot of time to play and set up big games, but want to have a system that they're familiar with, that they can apply to different periods or to even different settings. I can see this being useful to people who want to organise a club game, who don't really have a specific rule set in mind or a period specific rule set, and they can use this to fight out a battle in a couple of hours with a decent result. It also is a bit sandboxy, so I think you would be able to apply your own templates and your own house rules to this very easily if you wanted to change things to make it fit. So overall, I think this is a really nice little rule set, and I think credit should be given to the author. He's gone and given it a go, and I think he's come up with something which is solid, and I think this could see a lot of use at clubs or conventions. While I do think that this is probably a little bit basic for some people, I do think that this game could see a lot of use with people who just want a simple set of rules that they can just get off the shelf, put the models on the table and have a go. And the fact that he's done 20 scenarios, campaign rules, and I know he's working on additional supplements and additional material at the moment, I think that's great, and it shows that a game is supported. I've left links down below to where you can see this, and I hope you enjoyed the video. So let me know, what do you think? Are you tempted just to try out Orrible Little Men? Have you already tried it? What do you think? What kind of reception did it get? I'm going to be using this with some fantasy rules, I think. Maybe just get some light fantasy skirmish gaming going while I try and figure out what fantasy game I actually want to play. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed that. There are links, as I said, down below where you can go and find this. Let me know what you think, and I will see you all again soon in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.